Hi, we're here with Mike Nolan from Vinni and Furs. Mike is the lead vocalist and one of the creative minds behind Vinni and Furs. And when I say creative, you guys are not the typical band out there. You do a lot of interesting stuff on stage.
We try.
No,
try to stand apart a little bit. That's for sure.
You definitely stand apart a little bit. How long has the band been together?
Wow. Let's see. I think the first record was officially 96, somewhere in that area.
So you guys have put some time in the trenches.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of work turned into something that has never gone away, but has always had its peaks and valleys.
Now you've been a constant in the band.
That's been my band.
And has Robbie been with you from the beginning?
I've had Robbie. He was towards the beginning, not at the beginning. It started with me and two guys from my high school, and no idea what we were doing. One day I went out and bought a drum machine, and we are now a band. We now have a drum machine. So all we need is a band, and it developed. And I sat down and decided at one point I need to actually be able to play. So I taught myself how to play a guitar, and then a bass, and then a keyboard, and then used a lot of studio knowledge to learn to program and learn to record, and it's literally been a long learning curve to get to where we are.
So this has been an educational process for you as a performer.
Completely. Yeah, it went from this is just you hit 3 buttons and see what happens to, all right, we got to work out the chording on this, and being able to become from a very non-musician studio guy to a very workable musician in a band setting. It's come a long way.
That you reminded me of Trent Reznor, where he had been doing the electronic thing for so long, and then he said, "I want to do this with a full band with real drums." Is that kind of what it sort of evolved for you?
Definitely. You get to a point where you can only do so much yourself, and you need that interaction. I can sit down and write as many parts to a song as I want, but there's something about giving it to a different mind and having them interpret, or even putting together a song and leaving a piece out to see how someone else will fill in the gap.
So you appreciate that part of the creative process, dynamic with the other people you're working with.
Definitely. It took a long time. For the longest time, the band was me, Robbie, and I would fill in a different guitar player for every show. I would fill in a different drummer for every show. I would fill in a different bass player for every show. And it worked because I wrote it all. You play this, you play that, you play that.
Basically, you're hiring people to play your parts.
And I knew enough musicians that were good enough to walk in and really do whatever this is the EAG, go. And I could pull it off. But it got to the point where I was kind of alone in it. Not so much alone, but I wanted that interaction. I wanted a band to feel like a band.
You like that dynamic?
There's something to it, and I think the whole project takes on a different feel.
Now,
and we're still feeling that out with me and the guys that we have now.
How long have you had this lineup?
Let's say, God, we took 2 or 3 years to finish the recording of this record.
This is the
record that we just put out. It's called Red. It's Jason Siki, who's been in 1,000 different bands. Mojo Filter.
Real good band.
Actually, all 3 of my guys were Mojo Filter people. Chris Ruane was their drummer, and Johnny Metal is Johnny Metal, the bass player. I had worked with them for years and years. I was the audio engineer at Nick's Fat City, so I knew all these guys. We got along, loved their band. They were looking for something a little more cohesive. I wanted my guitar player to be my guitar player.
Right.
He is the player in my band. It's not I'm going to call 3 other guys and none of them can show up. Well, I'll call him and he'll do it. So
you're encouraging them to put themselves in
I really wanted a band that was the band.
Well, I think your new CD reflects that. I think it's definitely your best recording so far, in my opinion. There's a cohesiveness to it that I think shows the band moving forward. I'm curious too, because one of the things you guys are known for is you're a very exciting band to see live. There's a lot of things going on. You're very visual, of course. You have the dancer girls, and you have a lot of things going on. You got Robbie with the sparks.
We like fire and naked ladies, yes. Fire and naked ladies, yeah, really. Your two tent poles of rock and roll.
Yeah, fire
and nudity. They go a long way.
But it's not gratuitous. It's not condescending. It really feels like you're seeing a show.
That's what it should be. I think rock and roll should be a show. I love bands like The Cure and all those really, Radiohead, who just write fantastic music but stare at their shoes.
Yeah.
And there's a place for that, but there's also a place to be a circus act.
Absolutely.
I love a trapeze. I love David Bowie coming out and who knows what. I love Kiss being Kiss. There's a fine line between ridiculous and sublime.
There's a great quality in American cheese when done properly.
Exactly. So I try to make the band as much of a comic book as possible. Really good songs. I mean what I write, and I write a lot. I want them to play it as earnestly as possible. But when you're in front of people, who wants to watch me look at my shoes? I want them to be overloaded with what is going on up there.
Yeah, so you're definitely the kind of band that is hard to turn away from. I'm afraid I'll miss something.
That's kind of what we try to do, and it's not easy. And
that's got to be a challenge in the smaller venues, especially.
Yeah, when you're playing in front of, you're opening up for Ministry, you're opening up for Nine Inch Nails, you're opening up for these bands that are fantastic, and you've got their crowd, and there's 10,000 of them in front of you.
And you got a big stage.
And you've got this wonderful stage, and your sound is going to be impeccable, and there's all you really have to do is not screw up.
Just do what you do.
Yeah.
Just get up there and do what you do.
That's easy. It's the night where you look out, there's 10 people who don't know who you are. And you decide, this is the same show we do, whether it's one person or 1,000. I've said that since the very first show we've ever done. It doesn't matter if there's one person in front of us or 10,000. You go out there and you give them a show. So when they leave,
I love that philosophy.
You want to entertain who you have, because they're going to walk out and say that
essentially, you can't. And I've said this especially to the young musicians, and I'll say it directly to you guys, you cannot worry about who doesn't like you. You are there to entertain those who do. Focus on the people who are into it, because there's always going to be a certain number of people in the bar that are they're there to get laid, they're there to get drunk, they're there because they're just there.
Which is fine.
But there's going to be a couple of tables of people that are just, wow, that's who you're playing for.
I always try to think that not everyone is gonna like what we do, but they're going to turn their head and decide whether they like us or not.
Well, you're definitely going to make your presence.
Yeah, I want. You may turn and say, like, that's just not for me. That's not my kind of thing. That's not what I like. But you turned your head and you knew it because you couldn't not watch.
Now, you guys have gotten a really good professional reputation. You are one of the bands that the promoters will call when a band like Ministry comes to town. Hey, we need someone we can count on to. That's a factor that I think a lot of the young players don't get, that you can be good and entertaining and fun, but if you aren't professional and dependable,
there's a business side to the whole thing. I mean, I really wish all I had to do was show up and sing and dance and look at the girls and walk away. But you don't get to that point until you can talk to the guy who puts on the show, talk to the guy who booked the show, talk to the guy who's bringing the next show in, talk to every club who needs an entertainment. They don't really care if you're good or bad if you can entertain their people and have them keep drinking.
And I have made this case many times. If you can draw people, they don't care if you go up on stage and fart all night.
It's true.
If you have a packed house, they'll be fine with it.
Yeah, they really don't care as long as the bottom line ends up Good.
Now,
So you have to pay attention to that.
As a creative person, do you find it hard to reconcile your creative instincts, impulses with the realities of being a business?
Yes and no. I never sat down and wrote a song that I thought was going to be...
I'm writing a hit.
Yeah, when you do that, you turn into, you start thinking like Madonna or Rihanna or any of those.
Right.
Very much so. We called the guy who knows how to write the hit. I'm sitting down to write something that I like. How would, if I was in front of a band, what do I want to hear? So that's what I write. I like I'm not going to write songs I don't enjoy doing. And then you get to the point, well, let's do this well, because if I like it, somebody else is going to like it. You may not get everybody. I know I'm not everyone's taste, but I know that there's always an audience for what you do.